Let me now take a few minutes and just introduce Scott, and he's going to drive into some specifics that are more specific to this GRC 6.0 concept. So it's my pleasure to introduce Scott. He's the Vice President of GRC Advisory Services at Soho Dragon. Soho Dragon is a certified SmartSuite partner. They consult with our joint customers and provide GRC advisory and implementation services to them. Scott's been in the GRC field for over 20 years, known him for quite some time as well. He's had leader positions at Deloitte, KPMG, RSA Security, and Archer Experts. And without further ado, I think, Scott, I will turn this over to you.
Thank you, John. Pleasure. You seeing my screen okay, John?
We are, yes.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time today. It's such an honor to present alongside two gentlemen that not only define the industry, but continue to evolve it, form it, and reform it, and narrate it. So an incredible pleasure here today. Since we're talking about the evolution of GRC, I just cannot help myself. I have to tell you my personal anecdote with how fast I saw this industry growing right out of the bat when John actually hired me back in the 2000s. I was in healthcare IT at the time. He brought me over to GRC in the 2000s. I ran into an old colleague at the Atlanta airport, where I'm from, if that's not obvious yet. And I ran into him and he said, where did you end up? Where did you go? I said, I'm working with a local GRC firm in Kansas City. He says, GRC? This is in the 2000s, Barry. He says, GRC, I don't know what that is. What does it even stand for? Tell me what that is. So I gave him the 30-second elevator pitch on what GRC was. Our team at the time, it's a small team of only males at the time. I finished my little pitch with him and he says jokingly, so what you're telling me is it really stands for guys rambling about compliance. So we had a good chuckle. I said, good one. That's a good one. I'll keep that in my back pocket and repeat it in 15 years on a call with John. And then within 6 months of that conversation in the Atlanta airport, I get a call, same guy. And he says, Scott, you know that firm I was working with? We just got dinged with an SEC violation. We just got data breached, and we're also out of SOX compliance. I think we're going out of business. Do you have a job for me? Absolutely. We brought him on. He's still there working in that product to this day, 15 years later. So that was my baptism into the impact, the depth, and the trajectory at the time of GRC. And it continues today. As Mike said, 6 evolutions later, it's only growing, it's only getting faster and more imperative to your business processes. I'm not going to spend the time in the PowerPoint here. I just want to level set. I find, yes, I'm going to get to the demo. Just give me 3 minutes to level set, please. I know pixels on screen are important. However, if I go straight into the weeds, maybe the forest is not always as clear as to why we built this system using SmartSuite, what business problem we are solving with that, and moreover, why did we choose SmartSuite? I'll be honest with you, SmartSuite has more partners than Soho Dragon. Guess what? Soho Dragon has more partners than just SmartSuite. We specifically chose them for this use case for a reason. Real quick on Soho, okay, we're out of New York City, hence the name. Been around for 13 years now. Started in Peter's apartment. Peter's our CEO, started in his apartment. We grew globally. A few years later, launched a CRM practice, went global overseas, India, London, Lithuania, and then a few years ago, launched our GRC practice. Now we're in 5 countries and 3 continents. Even though our GRC practice is a few years old, all my team has 10 to 15 years of GRC experience, hundreds of implementations to our portfolio. Okay, I want to get through this slide, and then I promise I'm going to jump into the system. It's sitting over here. I got many screens. It's just calling for me, and I know it's calling for you as well. Why did we build regulatory change management in SmartSuite? What business problem are we solving here? Before, traditionally, historically, compliance teams had to data mine through several repositories. They had to go to the various regulatory agency websites and figure out, is this a regulatory change that I have to track, or is it just an announcement? Are they just saying, hey, we're meeting in DC next month, and I don't really need to complete an assessment against this? Over on the left side, before, many repositories, many data stores, regulations websites, your policies, your controls, and they had to do an information mapping exercise between these things and map them to, is this actually a regulatory delta that I need to be tracking against per my business objectives that Michael was talking about earlier? Afterwards, what we've done here, we got an integrated and unified GRC interface, okay? So we're going to bring, from a tool agnostic perspective, whatever regulatory intelligence tool you want to use. If you don't have one, we can make recommendations based on your budget, your imperatives, your regulations, and moreover, your frequency that you need to consume and assess this data. We're going to bring it into Smart Suite. Okay, we're going to launch an automated assessment. So it's just part, as Mike was talking about, it's just an embedded part of your day. You're going to log on to Smart Suite at 8 o'clock in the morning, or if you're me, 9:15. That's a joke for Peter. And then we're going to launch your dashboards. We're going to tell you, instead of making you pull, we're going to push. It's always a push versus pull conversation. We're going to push this information to you. We're going to automate it. It's going to be an integrated, embedded part of your workflow using Smart Suite. Now, let me address, we have a GRC audience on the call. I want to address the elephant in the room. Is this a new concept? No. Okay, I'm going to tell you why we did it in Smart Suite. Okay, regulatory change management, regulatory intelligence has been around for a decade, maybe decade and a half. Mike might even say longer. Okay, I have built those systems in these large, hulking, ERP-style GRC systems with a huge footprint, and I have built them for the privilege of charging your firm between $400,000 and $600,000 a year in licensing. Okay, not to mention the $400,000 for year one implementation services, and not to mention the six-figure year-over-year run rate just to keep the lights on. Okay, there's also been tools that charge you 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour that will do 1/100th of what Smart Suite does. What Smart Suite, John and team have done is bring that together. Let's give you the rich, robust functionality while coming at you with an extremely economic price point. Okay, so the SMB market we thought was, the small mid-market business market we thought was underserved. We know Fortune 1000, everyone's out there saturating that market. If you're in that space, that's great. This can also work for you. But the SMB market we wanted to service. Okay, I'm going to jump over to the actual instance now. Okay, here we are in Smart Suite, which John explained from a platform perspective, the extreme robust functionality that it does. Implementing several GRC systems, over 200 implementations in the past 14 years. What the Smart Suite platform offers is, I would say, a vast majority of what you can find in it. Okay, for 85% of what you will find in them for 1/20th of the cost. Okay, this is our regulatory change dashboard here. You log in. If you're a CC, a chief compliance officer, a chief risk officer, I need to monitor these. Frankly, we all know that there are some regs that are a little bit more demanding than others. Okay, NERC-CIP, that's for the energy and utility industry. That's a couple of times a quarter, maybe even more from a frequency perspective. FINRA, which is a private organization, they're going to come at you about once a year. Okay, so if I'm a CCO, I'll log in here. You can see the dashboards. I know maybe a little small, so I can blow it up easily here. So I'll drill into FDIC. If you're a bank, that's kind of important, right? That's an important regulation. You kind of want to keep an eye on that guy. Okay, I'm looking at here. You can see the applicable column. I see no, no. Why is it no? And keep in mind, this is sample data, but it is somewhat relevant to regulatory context and the spirit of the content you're going to get from your regulatory agencies. Number 71 here, that's a yes. Let me check it out. I'm a CRO, or maybe I'm just a compliance team lead. Okay, what exactly is going on here? Okay, sample agencies are jointly proposing some interagency guidance. That's a situation. That's 2 or 3 agencies that are coming together talking about some additional compliance regulations, some deltas. If there's 3 agencies involved, chances are I need to assess it. Okay, exactly what are we talking about? Well, here's the URL. We're just going to launch you right over to the agency. Read it for yourself. I'm not going to drain this content. We're running short on time, by the way, and we are willing to hang out after the top of the hour to take your questions. So we appreciate your patience. Okay, drilling down here again, I'm not going to drain the content. Basically, there's a regulatory change that the FDIC is announcing. However, as you can see from the metadata, there's 3 different agencies involved here. That is a situation as a compliance officer I need to assess or need to have my deputies assess. Here's your metadata, here's the region, it's in the roll stage, proposed, etc. Is it applicable? As far as the workflow that we have built here, if no, then we're done. All right, go back to your dashboard and check out your other regulations. If yes, we have to continue assessing this situation. All right, what we built, we have issues. I understand those of you who have worked in GRC tools, issues versus findings versus actions. What's the story? In this context, what we're saying is the regulatory change is just content delta. Okay, you don't know if there's something that you don't know if there's action items to be taken against it yet. So we assign the issue to it, clicking in here. That issue is more or less a bridge to your controls. Okay, so if you have an issue, you need a mitigating control. Here's your existing control measures. I launch over to the controls. As I'm moving everyone through this navigational process, I'm moving across applications, across data sets, but it's seamless to the user. It's seamless. The Smart Suite is I love the next generation user interface. You're moving between modules, maybe even between solutions. The user doesn't know it. The user doesn't need to know it. They're trying to solve their business problem. Okay, so they're just moving seamlessly through the system as I navigate here. Okay, once again, here's some control metadata. This one is a combined automatic and manual. It's external because it's around regulatory third-party risk management. Okay. Kicking back, is there an action required? Once again, here's another checkpoint. It's another decision point. It's another branch. If I click no here, we're done. Okay, we cache this. We put it as part of it's been assessed. We did not have any action items against it. Okay, but I've clicked yes. There is an action item yet. I don't know if there's a finding yet, but there is further investigation. There's something that needs to be done. In this case, we're going to establish an innovation team. What we often in our industry call tiger teams, basically a project team. Okay, we need to establish a team to assess further what the ramifications of this interagency announcement are. Okay. And then here's the pivotal point. I'm not going to call it the hub, but it is the central point of our workflow. If I check here, assessment required, yes. Okay, that's going to automatically launch an assessment to whoever I assign it to, presumably the compliance team or maybe regulatory risk team. I have clicked yes. If I were to click no, different situation. Now I'm going to launch over to assessments. Okay. The regulatory change assessment. This up here is metadata, which business unit, which business processes. I've been in rooms where we argued whether GRC should be tied to process or business unit. And I have spent hours, maybe weeks of my life having that discussion, but we were pinging both here. My personal opinion is GRC workflows should go to the process, right? Instead of just the business unit. But again, that is a conversation you can have during analyze and design sessions. Happy to have them. The actual assessment that we've built is more or less here. What is the general impact of this change? What is the category? Anticipated timeline, financial impact. This is more or less this section, the assessment. Keeping in mind, per your business process, maybe you have this today, maybe you don't. It is easy to add. If someone were to tell me right now, I could add it in a few seconds. What your questions are, what your answers are, and what the branching workflow subsequent from those answers need to be from a dynamic perspective. Okay, Smart Suite is extremely easy to configure. Reason number 48 that we chose them as a partner for this particular solution. Okay, so here's our assessment. Did I have a finding against it? Yes. We chose yes. Okay, we did our assessment. There is clearly a financial impact of less than 100K. It's coming in less than 6 months. There is a finding. Let's check out what the finding is. And I know we're running short. I'm gonna bring it home here. I promise. Okay. Our finding was the operational risk training curriculum, et cetera, is a well-structured program. However, our review and response is we have a mitigating control. Okay, we have some TPRM controls against this particular regulatory delta. We have a tiger team that has addressed it. We now have an innovation team that has addressed it as well. So we have a mitigating control. That is the end of this particular workflow. It was ingested into Smart Suite. It was investigated. It was assessed. We're good. We have the control. Okay, so that's one particular workflow. I'm going to try to wrap up another one real quick. before we get to questions, because I know we are up against it. There are many views that, as John talked about, this can be persona based, it can be privilege based, whatever. And once again, this functionality exists. It has existed for years if you want to pay $500,000. Okay. But what John and team have done is to give you the functionality as well as the price point. It depends on your number of users, but you can do everything John said, achieve the thing Michael said from a business perspective. It depends on your number of users, but you can do that for the price of, say, a high-end electric bicycle or a 20-year-old Toyota Camry, okay? It's very economic, it's very competitive, and it's very nimble. This is where I see the market going. It's federated, affordable solutions instead of paying $800,000 a year to do the same thing, okay? Here's my issues by impact. Obviously, if say I'm a team lead, or maybe I'm just a compliance analyst, these are not evaluated. That's a situation. I need to come in here, evaluate this, look at the rule. Okay, this is a sample FINRA change. Keep in mind, FINRA is a private organization. This is the other problem we're trying to solve. There is a taxonomy that is not always clear for compliance teams. You can have third-party authoritative sources, then you can have actual regulatory agencies. Beneath that, you can have actual regulations that you have to comply with. And beneath that, you can have just recommendations from all of these guys above. It's very confusing for compliance team. You need some stratification of that. Example, NCUA, National Credit Union Administration. They have a tool called the ACET, Automated Cyber Examination Tool. It's just a recommendation. It's just a tool. You don't have to use it. It is a tool they provide you. Okay, but that can be confusing for compliance teams, right? Because if you are already using, say, NIST CSF, Cybersecurity Framework, then you really don't have to implement ACET. So stratifying that taxonomy and that hierarchy is another thing that digitization of a tool such as Smart Suite can help you achieve. Okay, so here I am in the actual filing requirements. Again, this is my workflow. Say I'm a compliance answer, team lead. I'm just going in looking at my queue, what is outstanding for me? Okay, I got all the metadata. I have the controls tied in here. What are my action items? I need to start doing my assessment. At this point, I don't know because it's not been evaluated. Okay, so this is more at the individual contributor or team lead level instead of the executive level that, hey, this is my daily workflow. It's been pushed to me. Thank you for pushing it to me instead of me having to mine through 5 different repositories and 4 different spreadsheets and 6 different websites. That's what this automation is trying to achieve.